Hi everybody, welcome back. Still in the garden, still working on this very hot day, hoping that I can get done and get into the swimming pool. But there's another flower that is in bloom that I absolutely have to share with you. I love this one. I'm actually relatively new to this one. Some of the plants I've worked with for years and years and I understand them well. But this plant, this is only the second year that I've grown it, but I still just love it so much and want to share it with you. And this plant is called Bee Balm. The botanical name is Monarda, is the genus, and most people work with Monarda fistulosa, but there's lots of different species of bee balm that can be used interchangeably. Typically the biggest difference is that from one species to the next, the blossom color is a little bit different. So this is like a really pretty, this is closer to a wild bergamot color. It's this lovely lilac color, and yes, you can see some of the little flower heads inside of there are starting to go. As I mentioned in the last video, we've had a lot of rain the last couple of days, which has been fantastic, but you don't want to harvest any of your plants or herbs when it's raining or when they have any kind of dampness on them, because they're a lot more likely to mildew, and they just don't tend to do as well in storage if you do that. They're a lot harder to dry. So I'm going to be working to harvest this big, beautiful bush full of Monarda that I have today, and you can see all of the bees kind of buzzing around it. That's part of why it gets its namesake, obviously, is Bee Balm, because bees of all different varieties absolutely love this. It's a member of the mint family, and so it does have the stereotypical mint characteristics where it's got a square stem and the leaves are opposite. That means that they're growing from the stem opposite of one another. Other versions that you would see is alternate, and that would be like if, and that not within the mint family, just other plants in general. Alternate looks more like this, where you have a leaf here and then alternating you have here and here. But this is a mint, so we're opposite. The stem and the leaves are a little bit hairy. It's not as pronounced as some other species within the mint family. Yeah, but it's pretty easy to characterize. Again, once you've seen this once, you pretty much never forget it. It comes in some really pretty bright colors as well, but this is the one that I grow here because this is the native species. So Monarda is native to North America. It has naturalized in other parts of the world, so you can find this growing in the wild, and some people also refer to it as wild bergamot or bergamot, depending on how you want to pronounce it. It's not the same species it's not the same plant that is used in Earl Grey tea. So if you've had Earl Grey tea, you might see that it says wild bergamot. This is not the same thing. That's a completely different plant that would be in that tea. But this in and of itself is a really beautiful flower to grow. It's great for the pollinators, and obviously has some medicinal qualities, and that's why we're talking about it here today. So as I said, you can find it in the wild, but you can also grow it in your own garden. It's an absolutely gorgeous garden addition. What you can't see is that this bush is about 3 feet tall, 3.5 foot tall, and that's pretty characteristic. It grows, it has a bunch of erect stems that grow up from the base, and then you have all of your leaves, and then you have your buds at the terminal end of each of the stems. So let me see if I can pull one of these out. So this is the stem. So starting from the bottom, it's just stem and leaf, stem and leaf, stem and leaf, and then you start to see these branching stems coming off of here, and then that's where you will start to get all of your pretty Monarda flowers. Now, as you can see, the white spots, don't get distracted by that. Let's talk about that. I've grown Monarda, like I said, this is my second year of growing it, and I've grown it in a couple different locations in my garden between last year and this year. And because it's a mint family member, it is perennial, so it comes back year after year after year as long as you care for the plants properly. Don't rip all of the root systems out, although mints, they still kind of come back anyway. This particular plant is susceptible to white powdery mildew, and that's what I'm starting to see on my leaves. And when you experience this, let's see if we can get it up close. When you start to experience this, that's when you know that you need to work quickly and try to harvest as much of your plant as you can, as much of your plant that is ripe, because it tends to start at the base. As you can see, the leaves at the bottom are a lot more infected, and it works its way up to the top. So my leaves and my flowers at the top have not been affected yet. So when I harvest this today, I will just be very careful to make sure that I'm not taking anything with any kind of powdery mildew. And then once I'm done harvesting this for today, I am going to cut it off at the base, and you have to burn the stems, unfortunately. If I were to try to compost this, that powdery mildew can survive in the composter and can infect my plants again next year. I've read differing theories as to why this can happen. An herbalist friend of mine said Monarda is just always susceptible to it, so odds are that your plants are gonna, at least 1 or 2 of your plants are gonna get it each year. Just make sure that, you know, you take care of it when it happens. And the prevailing theories that I've heard is that either there's not enough airflow or that it's too dry. I have controlled for both of those things this year because I lost all of my Monarda last year to powdery mildew. So I've kept it watered properly and appropriately, and it's in a bed with other plants, but there's really nice airflow through here. So still not sure why it happened this year. It just did. But I'm still going to harvest these and work with them because it's a really good medicinal plant. So let's talk about growing Monarda from seed, as I did. You can find it in the wild, but I grew it from seed. I ordered my seed from, I believe, Strictly Medicinals, and there's no affiliation, just one of the seed companies that I like to use. And I started them from seed last year, and they came back up this year. The seeds are relatively small, so you have to be careful when you're working with them. And they take a long time to germinate. They can take anywhere from 2, 3, 4 weeks to germinate. So just be patient and keep your seed starting medium nice and moisturized, and keep it with good light and good circulation. And it will germinate and grow pretty easily for you from then on out. For those people who've never worked with a mint family, or who've never grown a mint family, or don't know the reputation of the mint family, they spread very easily and readily and can take over any garden, even a native one. Native mints will grow even better and spread everywhere. So if that's a concern for you, it's always the best idea to try to contain the roots, contain everything underground, because that's how they're going to spread. You can grow them in pots, in raised beds. Just make sure that you are containing the roots all the way around. But I'm not worried about it because this doesn't seem to be spreading as invasively as my spearmint has, which has taken over every bed that it is in. And it's beautiful and awesome, and I like working with it. So if I have a lot of Monarda, I have lots of herbalist friends who can take some off my hands if I have a little bit too much extra. So once it grows to this height, you will notice the buds on it. They're really, really pretty, even when they are closed. And I don't see any right now because it's pretty much entirely open. But they get these really beautiful buds because, like, the leaves around the base are really nice, and they hang on. Mine sit here unopened for like 2 weeks, and I just wait for them to bloom. And every morning I come out, I'm like, what are you doing? Why aren't you blooming? But anyway, it will bloom kind of all at once in this big, beautiful explosion of flower. And it has a really, really nice smell. It's not a particularly strong minty smell, in my opinion. It's floral, it's complex, it's a little bit earthy. Really pretty flower just to have, just because you enjoy it. Smells really nice, blows in the wind, just kind of this gorgeous thing to have. But also really good to work with medicinally. So once you get the flower to this height, once it has blossomed, you want to start picking your blossoms as soon as they are fully opened. Now this is also something that I had mentioned with my calendula videos, that you want to try to wait as long as you can to pick them as far as when they start blooming, because you want to make sure, and I'll show you an example here. This little guy is not 100% open. So you can see some of the little flowers are open, but then there are lots of little ones that are not open. And there's nothing wrong with that, but you're just not allowing the flower to reach its full maturity and its full medicinal quality before you harvest it when you pick it like this. As I mentioned, I'll have to harvest all of it because mine's powdery, and I'll still use this, but if you can allow it to open up fully and completely to where every single one of those buds is open, that's going to be the best quality Monarda for you. So depending upon, how you choose to harvest, some people like to take the top 6 inches of the plant as part of the harvest, and there's certainly nothing wrong with that. But I tend to find that, well, you know, there's already powdery mildew on some of my leaves, and I definitely don't want to lose any of the harvest. So I might only take the top couple of inches, the top few sets of leaves that I know are clean, and the flower buds. I prefer to work with it once it has been dried, because it really makes an excellent dried tea. But again, you can, most herbs you can work with them when they're fresh. So if this is out there now and you need it now, then use it now. But if you want to dry it, you just want to make sure, because this flower head is kind of meaty as far as flower heads go, you might want to kind of pick the flowers, or pick the leaves off and dry them separately from the flowers, because these are going to dry out more quickly than these are, and you don't want these getting like overly crispy and dried and gross, and then you don't really want to work with them anymore. So I would separate them. You could even pull the stem off if you don't want. You can use the stem, but if you don't want to, and just dry them separately. Just a quick note on dehydrating, because there's lots of different ways that you can do it, and sometimes it's as simple as you know, with some of the really long stemmed herbs, you know, you can tie them up and hang them from somewhere where there's a really good draft and there's not a whole lot of sunlight on them, so they're not going to get ruined. That certainly is a really good way, but you want to make sure that they're still drying quickly. The trick is to dry your herbs as quickly as you can, as efficiently as you can, because that's going to lock in all of those volatile oils, all of the, anything like a resin, you know, it's going to make sure that it gets locked into that plant and it stays nice and fresh, and it maintains its flavor and its color and its medicinal quality for you. So you always just want to make sure that you're working as effectively as you can. Now, I don't have any fancy dehydrating equipment. I have dehydrator racks that came with this really cheap dehydrator that doesn't even have a temperature gauge on it. But I find that I can still use the racks, and I will stack them full of flowers or leaves or whatever it is that I'm dehydrating. And I might put them in like my bedroom and put them right over top of my vent. And then when the air conditioner is blowing through, it dries them out pretty quickly. Or you can sit them in front of a fan and dry them out quickly. But you don't want to expose them to a lot of heat, and you don't want to expose them to sunlight, because that is what degrades your herbs really quickly. So I will place these, all of the flowers that I harvest today are going to go on the drying racks, and then the leaves will go separate. And then you just want to check them after, you know, 12 hours, 24 hours, depending on how you're drying them. Make sure they're not getting mildewy and there's lots of airflow, and make sure that once they are dried but not brittle, you don't want them to completely just like crumble in your hand or look gray or brown. That means that they have gone past what is actually a good drying stage. But it should still look relatively the same. It should maintain its natural color, and it should still also smell. If you taste it, it should taste like what you would expect the herb to taste like. Any signs that, you know, you've over dehydrated, or it's mildewy, anything like that, just dispose of it. It's not worth it to try to keep herbs that are no good. Always try to maintain high quality herbs in your little herbal, you know, medicine chest, wherever that happens to be. So once we have harvested our Monarda, how are we going to work with it? It, again, like many other herbs that I have introduced to you, can be used in a variety of different ways. Most people use Monarda internally. It is really, really good for lots of things digestive related. And again, drinking it as a tea, it makes a really lovely tea. Most members of the mint family are really good as a tea, and it's super easy to pair them with lots of other things. So it's going to taste good. You're going to enjoy drinking it. It's not going to be difficult to make. But it's good for upset stomachs, stomach bugs. So if you feel like you might, or if you know that you might have a stomach virus or an intestinal virus, a bug, anything like that, Monarda is going to help kind of clear that out, kill any of those yuckies, help you get rid of them. It helps with just your run-of-the-mill upset stomachs. If you get like a nervous upset stomach, it can help with that. It has mild nervine properties, so that means it will help you to feel a little bit calm, but it really works on your digestive system to help your digestive system feel nice and calm. So in addition to being able to be used for all kinds of digestive ailments, stomach ailments, it also can be used to help when you have a common cold or a viral infection. It helps with any kind of bronchial issues. It just kind of relaxes the system. Probably wouldn't be my first one. I'm more prone to go for something like a white pine or a black cherry if you're having like serious cough or anything like that. But Bee Balm can just be very soothing. If you have a cold, you have a low-grade fever, and you just want some relief, you can certainly have a really nice Bee Balm Monarda tea for that, and it will help out with that. As always, if you have any questions or comments to add, I'd love to hear back from you. Visit my website for more, www.salemstillroom.com. Be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons, and thanks for watching. Have a great day.